What's up guys, welcome back to another perspective lesson. We're going over one part of perspective one more time if you guys watch my other videos. This is pretty much just going to be repeating a lot of the things that you already know, but we're just looking at a different angle. So instead of looking straight through a city, seeing the buildings going away from us in the distance, we're going to change our perspective to looking up, right? So just to kind of review things real quick, because we are going to be using most of these tools, but not all of these tools. When we're creating perspective, when we're creating one-point perspective particularly, we need our horizon line. Okay, we need our, jump the gun there. We need our vanishing point, and then of course if we go back to that, we need our vanishing lines that are going to the vanishing point. And this is what eventually helps us to build whatever we're trying to create in that perspective, right? So here's my city, or a town, or whatever it is, right? So now, if we were to put ourselves in this position, here we are, right? I'm sure this looks like every single one of us. And we were going to change our view and pretend that these buildings are even much higher. And we now look up at these daunting, scary skyscrapers. What are we going to see? Okay. So let me turn off all my little pre-drawings here, and then we're going to put on our first reference. And this is a reference I'm going to use for the drawing later. But this is a really good and simple picture for the idea that I'm trying to convey here. You can really see all of these lines that are like going up, right? Why are you not letting me draw this guy? Okay. So you guys can see all these lines are converging up towards the airplane, right? And so you can kind of get the idea already of what I'm trying to say, right? There's obviously a vanishing point off into the distance, right? But now it's up in the sky. We don't have a point where there's a horizon line anymore because there's no more horizon. We're standing on the horizon essentially in this picture. So we do still have our lines, right? And this is just a rough, I put these lines in because you know how I love the ruler in this program. It's always working very well with me. But anyways, I wanted to put these in advance to show you guys that there's really just one tool that we need, and that's going to be our vanishing point. Okay. And if you guys, just kind of like a little fun fact here, if looking at what the actual center of the picture is, the actual center lies right around here, right at the tippy top of that airplane. So again, talking about the concept of perspective, the vanishing point doesn't always have to go exactly to the center of your page, because the vanishing point is going to be all dependent of where you're pointing your camera or where you're looking in space. And this, whoever took this picture might not be looking exactly perfectly up right into the center. So therefore the center of where all these buildings are converging to is not exactly in the center either. But it is really close, and it's really helping to bring our eyes to the airplane, which is the overall goal of the picture, right? And you can also use that kind of directional line idea in your illustrations too. What do you want people to be staring at? You can have all these lines converging to something, and it's going to make people's eyes go straight there. Another couple examples I just wanted to show because I thought these were cool and kind of to get an idea of what you can use this for. Really famous poster here. The Batman Dark Knight poster, and then also here's it without Batman. You guys can see it's the same concept, right? So they had a picture, or maybe several pictures of buildings that they just kind of photoshopped together into like a mound of buildings, right? No buildings are really like this close together, but same exact concept going on here, where you just have all these lines converging all to one point, and it's obviously pointing straight at our main character's head, right? It's really trying to emphasize something. And even when you take the character out of it, these lines are all still pointing to something relevant, right? It's this bat, the bat symbol, right? If you guys didn't know that or never seen that before, it's the Batman symbol right there, just in between all the buildings. The same thing's going on here. And this is just a tool, right? It's just another way of manipulating this perspective tool to further tell our story, or to tell the viewer what we're trying to show them. But these aren't the only things that we can use it for. Of course, when we talk about perspective, we do talk about cities a lot, but at least in this sense, we can also use this for a nature scene too. So maybe if you're drawing a comic, you could even consider the fact of like, well, you want to do a point of view shot. Your character's having a picnic, they lay down in the middle of a forest or something, and they look up. Here you go. You can use this tool for this too. So even when I take the lines and I show them converging, they're all going to the same point. Now, the thing that you can have fun with it with trees and stuff is they're a little more organic of a shape. So they might not be going perfectly to the vanishing point. They're going to have like some twists and bends and stuff like that. You can see like not even all of them, like this line I drew over here. You can see the trees bending a little bit, and that's fine. That's just what nature does. But the idea is to have an idea of where they're all kind of converging to, right? Because you can look and all the trees are, I mean, these are like straight up arrows, right? They're all pointing to one spot. This is a really cool tool, and it's just it's another way to use this tool. And so we're not going to dive too deeply into this because I do want to try to keep these shorter, but let's go ahead and go back to our first reference shot, and I'm going to move this guy over so I can just use that as a reference, and then we'll just draw in a sense of these buildings, okay? And then I do want to go over one advanced technique, but let's get there when we get there, which is going to be about drawing the windows. Okay, so remember, we don't need our horizon line for this, so now we just have the choice of throwing in our vanishing point. Let's make sure, there we go, it's letting me draw on that. So we get to decide where we want our vanishing point. Ideally, somewhere still in the middle would always be helpful. So I'm just going to look around, try to find somewhere in the middle for myself, and give myself a point. Okay. I put that a little bit off to the side, just because if you remember in the picture it was a little off to the side. And I'm just going to try to copy the picture to a sense. Okay, so I'm going to change my color to a lighter blue here. And I'm going to use this light blue to give myself some guidelines now with my favorite ruler tool. Okay, let me just create a new layer. We'll go under our vanishing point. And I'm just going to create a bunch of crosses going across here. Okay. You can create as many or as little as you want. You don't always have to do this process either. If you like already know you just want to jump in and start creating your building lines. I like to do this because it's just going to give me some options to look at. It's kind of like one of those things of like staring at that big blank page is like scarier than staring at something with at least some sort of a rough sketch on it. This ruler tool, there we go. Yeah. Alright, so I'm just going to keep drawing my lines here. That way I don't have to draw so many later, or I don't have to think about it so much later. Come on, there you go. Okay, maybe if it wants to work with me, maybe one more in here. Just because that's a big open spot. Alright. Cool. So now we kind of have like a rising sun kind of picture, right, with the sun rays coming out. So we're going to go ahead and use this as our placement for our buildings. And I have my reference over here, right? But I don't have to copy this exactly. Essentially, the idea is just there's a bunch of buildings going up into the sky. And I get to choose how high I want them to be, how thick I want them to be. If you want them to be skinny and long or wide and short, whatever it is that you guys want to create your buildings like, go ahead and do that. I'll draw a couple here. Let me do maybe like a dark gray color for building, right? We do need to remember that these buildings are all on different angles and stuff. So Why you gotta treat me like that, ruler? Okay. Get my reference in the shot there. So they're not all gonna be pointing the same way, right? So what I mean by that is if I come back over here and choose my reference real quick, what I'm saying is, so some of the lines in the building, some of the buildings are going this way, some are going this way, and then this way, right, this way. What we want to think about that is essentially as like, let's just give ourselves a box that is on an angle. So if we had a box or a square shape, now we're just going to rotate that a little bit. So then we have a box that looks more like this, maybe like a diamond shape. Okay, and then we're going to use that shape, like this shape, for all of our window lines going this way, and this shape for all of our window lines going that way, and then, you know, so on and so forth, right? That way it's easier. Let me undo all my silly lines here, and we'll move our reference off to the side again. Okay, I'm just gonna get out of here. All right. Okay, so what I'm going to do then is I'm going to give myself that box, so I already know. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm drawing without the ruler for now. And then now I can come in and decide, matching my ruler up with that line I made, I'm going to decide where I want the tops of my buildings to be. So I'm going to choose that bottom left one first, and I think it's be a pretty high. Maybe we'll say like between this line and this line. Sounds good to me. Okay, and then I see that little short building at the bottom there, so I do kind of want to throw that in. I know that this building is going to come down along this line, right? So I can throw that other small building in here, and let's just say it squeezes in between those two lines like that. Right? And let me erase a little bit of this so it's not so in the way. Perspective involves a lot of lines, and eventually will involve a lot of erasing, right? So let me even lower the opacity of this so that maybe if that gets too confusing for you guys on the screen. It can be a confusing process, but that's why I always say keep an eraser around, so that way you guys can erase what you don't need at the moment and then come back, and if you need to bring it back, you can bring it back or keep it out of your picture. That's why I personally like the different colors, because that helps me kind of see beyond the lines. Okay, so I'm going to give myself the side of this building here. Going down like that. And then, of course, going down like that. So now, what we can see too is that this building, it has an edge to it, right, where it's coming down this way. Because obviously these buildings exist in 3D space, and buildings take up room, right? You can be inside of a building. It's not a flat thing. So what I'm actually going to do is take the angle that I created here, right there. Let's see. I think I'm actually going to need a different angle. This ruler is not working for me. Okay. Yeah, we're going to need an angle more like that. All right. So what's going on here is that these the buildings in this perspective, actually, they do have other perspective lines going on, which can be the confusion. But just go ahead and give yourself best judgment here. We're going to still try to stick to just the one point for now, and we can always go back to that. And what I mean by they have more than one perspective point going on is that even the windows on the buildings here that are going like this way, technically in space, because everything, remember, is converging off to something off in the distance. So that also includes those windows. So if you can see, those windows are wider on one side, and it's just getting complete exaggeration, but and then they're getting thinner on the other side, right? So that means that somewhere over here on my picture there would be another vanishing point. But the thing that gets confusing about this is that then the building that's over here would have a vanishing point down there, and the building over here would have, so it's like you already see where this is going. So in the sake of making it simple, just try to follow your reference the best you can and try to get that angle the best you can too for now. These are always advanced topics that we can come back to later once we have a good grasp of stuff like this. Alright, so now I'm going to throw in that second building. Let's see. I want it to be, maybe we'll say like that high. Right, why not? And then I know it's going to follow this line. Okay. I'm actually thinking I kind of want to redo some stuff because I'm thinking I can make this a little bit better. Alright. Okay, guys. So, follow along with me as I make my mistakes. I'm going to actually keep this here, this part of this building. And we'll make this side a little longer. I'll make it, I don't want it to be too long, so I'm not going to go all the way to the other blue line. But we're making almost a straight line here. Here. Okay. I'm going to leave this in so you guys can see that mistakes, they happen in art, and sometimes you just gotta bite down and accept it and then fix it. Okay, so all I have to do is erase and erase. And the reason I did this is because I think if I put that building a little more over to the side, I can use this angle that I wanted to use at first to create the side of that building now. And this is going to keep things a lot more simple for me. Okay, so I'm using that angle. Now I'm going to come in with my vanishing point, line it up to that point, and then there we go. Okay, so a little bit more realistic there, a little better. Okay, so now I'm going to line up here. I'm going to find that short building again. I'm going to go back in. Say somewhere around here seems good. Okay. Line that up with my vanishing point. And now we're finding our other building. Okay, I remember I wanted it somewhere up there. And sorry, I was just looking over a picture here. I think these buildings are at such a weird angle. Okay, so I think this is actually going to come down to maybe here. And then now I'm going to draw the top, which is going to be this angle. We're going to draw that here. Connecting. Okay. From there, then we can come back to our vanishing point. Lower down, there we go. A little bit more. Okay. Boom. Alright, we got to take this angle. There we go. Got to take this angle and put it here. There we go. And as wide as you want that building to be, I kind of like that distance right there, I think, where it goes to that blue line. And now I'm just going to line it up with that blue line and bring it down. Okay. So look at that, we already have 3 buildings going on. And it's a little more complicated than just that typical 1-point perspective, right? Having a horizon line definitely keeps things in check a little easier, but sometimes you gotta take your time, right? Like I showed you my mistake. Don't be afraid to make your own mistakes. It's all a part of the process, I promise, even though I know sometimes it can be really frustrating and make you want to stop. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and draw the building over there to the right. So what I want to do is take, come on, ruler, move with me. Okay, I'm going to take this angle, and I'm going to draw this angle going this way. Do that a little long. I guess I can erase some of that. Okay. And while we have that, why don't we go ahead and converge it. Oh, okay. Come on, ruler. And we're going to go that way down with the building. And now I'm going to take the other angle from our square. If my ruler would so kindly work with me. There you go. I'll move that down. Think about how thick you want your building to be again, right? So the longer I make this line, I'm choosing the thickness right now. So now I'm going to come over to my vanishing point, connect it with that point, good enough, and down. Okay. There you go. We got another building in there. Let's go ahead and do two more. So we'll do this one that's off in the corner, the little short one. And since I have so much room over here, maybe I'll try to make it a wider one. So I'll kind of take my own interpretation of it. Okay, so let's start with this line that we already have, or at least near it. I'm going to have it come down. I don't want it to be too tall. Remember, I want to make this one a little wider and a little shorter, right? So now I'm going to come in with my ruler, twist it around. We're going to find this angle, best that we can. Take it over here. Okay. That's probably about as wide as I can make it and still have it fit in between that other building and still give myself some room so that they're not touching, right? If you want them to touch, though, by all means you can. You know, buildings sometimes are connected to each other. And so we're stealing this angle, which is actually almost very similar to our vanishing point. I'm going to manipulate it a little bit. Ooh, that is super similar. Okay. Right here. Come on, ruler. There you go. Thanks for joining in. Okay, and now I'm going to come with my vanishing point, which is basically just barely changing that angle, right? But you can see it is slightly on a different angle, and it's going to go down. Okay, and then of course you can come in to your vanishing point here and draw the side of the building. And so you're going to have weird angles like that created because these buildings are coming so close to the horizon line, or not the horizon line, sorry, the vanishing point. So sometimes it will create weird angles like this. That's why these things like this are on such an extreme slope, right? It's also the distortion of how high these buildings are from our viewpoint and like what's kind of happening with our eyesight or with the camera. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this other building in. Take this angle, and I think this building should maybe be, let's do right here. You guys can see it's going to go almost all the way over to the edge there. Okay. And I'm just going to take these two corners down with the vanishing point before I find any other angles, because I might want to change it, right? So definitely see me making a lot of changes in this video. That's okay. I get to tell my own story with my pictures, right? So see, like this, the ruler would make this converge with this building, right? I don't want that. So all I have to do is just change the vanishing point now. Not the vanishing point, just change my ruler's angle. And there we go. So I have an acceptable amount, at least to my preference, of where I want that building to go. Okay, and I can erase this little tail that I created now. And maybe some of these other little marks that have mysteriously come to life. Okay. Alright, so we have that building coming to life here. And you guys can see this building too. It's an example of, if you see right here on the side, you can see some of the side of that building are not really. It's weird. It's because of the perspective, because the building is, this is why I'm saying you're going to get some of these really weird points. Because the building where it's wrapping around, come on, really, let me grab my picture so I can show everybody. Alright, so where the building is wrapping around, and wrapping around, oh my god, go away, sir. Here, it's just in line with that vanishing point that we don't actually see those edges. And I thought we were, but when I zoomed in there, I totally seen that we actually aren't. We're only seeing one flat face of this building. The 3D perspective of it still exists, of course, but because of the way it's lined up, we don't actually see it. But we can enforce again that perspective by drawing that building that's coming out right next to it. So if I take, my angle here that we created in the beginning, and I draw it out just a little bit, this building's pretty small. It's further off into the distance. It might be on the same block even as this building, so I'm actually going to even shade that off just a little bit more. Okay. We know that next line comes from our vanishing point because it's going down to the street. So any lines that you can picture going down to where the sidewalk would be or where the street would be, those always go back up to the vanishing point. Okay. But that other one is the top of the building, right? So now I have to find this line again. I gotta tilt it a little bit more. And then right there, line it up with that corner best you can. And then it's gonna go through this way. And I'm gonna draw it almost all the way down, even though I am gonna draw that little edge coming out. And that edge coming out adds a lot of interest to the building, I think. Adds a lot of character, Sometimes you don't want your buildings to just be a rectangle existing going up to the sky, It's kind of boring. So now all I have to do is take that angle and draw that out like that. I like that it goes to that line right there. It's very convenient for me. I'm going to go ahead and erase this now. Okay. We're going to line that point up, that line up that we just drew to the vanishing point. So we already actually have that blue line right there, which is pretty helpful. Okay, come grab this point. Okay, that's close enough. Ooh, and see, we're going to get a weird skew right there, but that's okay. I'm actually just going to take this and draw it all the way down like that. Alright, so there we have it. So I'm going to go ahead and erase this box that we had here in the beginning that was just helping me with my lines. Okay. Come on, Adobe Fresco, you can do it. You gotta try to advertise yourself to people so they want to buy you. Why are you running so slow? Okay. Alright guys, and then there we have it. So a blank buildings, right? So this is really the point that we come in and we add in our windows and stuff. Windows, at least vertically, are going to be pretty easy because all you guys are going to do is line up your ruler, your non-digital ruler that'll actually work for you, and you're going to line it up into the building. What is going on? I swear to God, I'm not even putting my pen on the paper or the tablet. Okay, so then the line goes down. Man, never worked with something this buggy before. Line goes down, and then you guys just keep creating these lines, and you can make them as thick or as thin as you want. Ideally, about the same width apart. I'm not going to focus on that too much because, I mean, this thing's not going to let me. But, alright, so you would just kind of continue that pattern. And then the idea for the windows going up, and if you guys can see on the reference, let me bring the reference back in here to create this point. Move it in. I want to make it nice and big for you guys. I'm actually going to focus on this building in the bottom right here. Okay, let's get this drawing off for a second. And you. Okay. If you guys can see, oh, there's that green dot is the vanishing point. So as you guys can see, the window's down here, and let me grab a nice brighter color so we can see it. There we go. Oh, thank you. The windows down here are way bigger in size than the windows all the way up here that I can actually barely even see the line in between, right? They're super teeny tiny. So when you're drawing your picture, you can just kind of make the observation of maybe coming in and starting really tiny and then just like focusing on getting wider and wider as you go down, until you get down to the bottom and you're making really wide windows. And as you guys can see, that works pretty well usually. Like, you can kind of fake it till you make it on something like this. The trick is still, the trick of perspective is still created, because just the general idea is that things get smaller in the distance, and if you create that, then people will accept it, right? I really don't think people are going to stop and count each one of your windows and make sure that they're going exactly off into perspective. However, if this is something that you're worried about and you do want your windows to be the right distance away from each other, let's jump into it. Alright guys, I know I just said that I was going to be showing you an advanced technique. I did actually go on to film that, and it ended up taking another 25 to 30 minutes just to show that technique, which kind of just shows how in-depth it is. But so this video doesn't drag on, I'm going to end this one here, and then next week I'll post that technique so you guys can kind of see that tool and then add it together, and that way it'll be much more easily accessible if you ever need to watch that video again, which you might. I might even be watching my own video over again to relearn that technique. But alright guys, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys again soon.